Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Simone Freeman, Assistant Town Attorney. To her left is Simone Rogley, Assistant Town Attorney. To her left, you're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise and accurate information so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. They're also listed up here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulties were self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio if you haven't done so already. Then you will be asked to go to the podium. We'll state your name and address for the record, and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 2 ways to find out about your case. Excuse me. You can call the planning department tomorrow after 12 p.m., or you can wait notified by mail. We do have 2 adjournments tonight. The first adjournment is case number 19142, Belquis Halim. That has been adjourned to August 6th. And the next case is case 19143, Gennaro and Melissa Scapati. That has also been adjourned to August 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 19141, Frank and Indira Fromm, 307 Bow Drive, Hauppauge. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Bow Drive and Mount Pleasant Road. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 18-foot by 36-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Good evening.
Evening.
Could you introduce?
Sure. I'm Indira, and this is my husband, Frank Fromm. We live at 307 Bow Drive, Hauppauge, New York, 11788. And we're requesting a variance for an in-ground swimming pool because in our bore testing, we hit water at 6 feet depth. Oh, yeah.
You hit water at 6 foot,
Correct.
and how deep is your pool going to be? Like a regular pool?
8.
Pool.
I said, how deep is the pool? Are they planning to put the pool in?
4 sloping to 8.
4 sloping to 8. Okay. So your pool company's going to have to use well points or something to,
They're using holes to deep water the area.
okay. Okay.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
Mr. Chairman, as the applicant has stated, they're proposing to construct an 8-foot depth pool with a depth to groundwater of only 6 feet, and it does raise concerns regarding dewatering activities during construction and potential groundwater contamination. So we'd just like to note that.
All right. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19145, Jacqueline and Stephen Capua, 153 Hornet Road, Comac. The location of the property is the east side of Hornet Road, 1,455 feet north of New Highway. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 24 feet to 10 feet, to reduce total side yards from 60 feet to 29 feet, for a proposed 168 square foot gazebo, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 85%, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the side yard from 25% to 33% for existing asphalt driveway.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you? I'm Steve Cappy, this is my wife Jackie, and as you already said, 153 Haunted Road, which is a busy block, so for safety, we wanted a bigger driveway for a U-shape to drive through. She has MS, so she usually doesn't do well in the snowy conditions, icy conditions, so we made the a little wider for her. I don't know if you can hear me, it keeps
I'm sorry,
going
could
in and out.
Yeah, lift it up so we could hear you.
We put in a U-shaped driveway so she could park by the front door so she can get into the house. So we did that for safety, and we did the U-shaped for safety, because you can't even park a car on Haunted Road. It's actually, the mailman's actually nervous and always complains to me that they almost hit him all the time. The old mailman got hit twice. It's dangerous. They come over by the, past the firehouse and go down that hill over there by the old sawmill. I don't know if you're probably familiar with it. They come down there, they turn, and they shoot down.
Excuse me. Thank you. Did you get it all?
Did you hear me? Because I've repeated. I'm okay.
No. It was the phone.
But the gazebo, we had the, it's kind of like if we put it in the back, because the back of our property goes down like this.
Mhm.
So we wanted to put the gazebo at the end of the pool.
It's going to go on that concrete pad.
Yeah, 5 inches thick. I wanted recycled concrete with the wire mesh and 5 inches thick. A pretty strong base.
Okay.
But for me to put it way in the back, there's a deck on the back of the pool, on the back of the house. First I put it up there, I don't want it up there. I mean, it's sort of like you walk out and there's just a roof there.
Right.
So I wanted it where you could just come out and go into the pool type of deal.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19146, Chang Wu Li, 151 Plymouth Boulevard, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northwestern terminus of Plymouth Boulevard and Central Road. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 45 feet for a proposed 144-square-foot first-floor addition. To permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 144-square-foot first-floor addition and proposed 39-square-foot front portico.
What? Did he step out?
He's on his way.
He's on his way? Okay. What we'll do is we'll skip you and we'll go to the next case. When he comes in, you let me know, and then we'll put you back on? All right? Okay. Okay. We're gonna,
Sure, no problem.
Okay. The next case on the agenda, case number 19147, Thomas Drago, 15 Prospect Street, Smithtown. The location of the property is the north side of Prospect Street, 150 feet west of Fairview Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum setback from any lot line from 6 feet to 0 for an existing 162-square-foot shed, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 32% for an existing asphalt driveway and paver patio, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 0 for an existing 5-foot fence.
good evening.
How are you? I'm Thomas Drago, my sister Lori Drago. So for the existing shed that we had there, we had two original sheds that were a little bit larger. They were built probably in the 1940s that were kind of dangerous. And we have some small children at the house, so we took them down and installed one, smaller one. They were there when we bought the house. The old ones were like a barn, and they were literally listing. So we took them down, we put that one up. I didn't know that the old ones didn't have a permit. They were built a long time ago. For the for the pavers also, so the section that's to the left of the pool area, that was an existing pavers that we had taken up because there was no aggregate below it, and just put new pavers on where they originally were. And then we had eventually gotten a pool done with a permit for the pavers that were there. And this one popped up now when we went for another permit for something, for an extension we're doing for her. Sorry. I'm talking too much, I just got hit.
And then the fence.
Oh, and the fence. All right, so we live down the block from the old Croxley's. So the fence kind of keeps out a lot of drunk people that like to wander onto the property. We had someone come in with a car and rip up the mailbox. They hit the curb in our driveway, so we ended up putting a fence a little bit closer and gates to stop them from coming in while they were leaving the bar. And then the place just reopened as a new place, and it's back to that again, which is awesome. So we're just trying to keep that whole crowd out, and that's what we're at with the fence. Yeah, security.
Okay. Yeah, we passed by your house yesterday. We were just looking at the fence. It doesn't interfere with any visibility with cars coming by or anything, because it's basically
Set
back on
back,
your
but
property.
yes,
Yeah. Can I just ask you a question?
absolutely.
Looking down your driveway, there's a basketball court, portable basketball.
Yeah, yep.
What's in back of it?
Oh, that somewhat makeshift treehouse that's coming down now.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that was a treehouse that we attempted to build until my builder said that we can't do that because the carport that we're trying to build is gonna be on top of that. So, yeah.
I just couldn't figure out what it was, so.
Yeah,
It
Just
was
a
a
question.
makeshift treehouse during COVID when we were all bored.
yeah.
Okay.
We went to work.
Pretty safe. I was up there.
Treehouse, please.
All right.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. The area variances are just for the paving, the fencing, and the shed. It has nothing to do with the work that's being done on the house, so.
Sabrina.
Mr. Chairman, we would still wanted to consider information presented by the applicant and any comments from the public before we made a recommendation, so no decision will be made tonight.
All right.
Oh,
In reference to what? I don't understand.
yeah.
Wanted to see what you had to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Wanted to understand the whole testimony.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you for your time, guys.
One second.
Oh,
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
your time.
Good night,
Have a
good
nice
night.
evening.
Thank you very much.
Did that woman come back with, by herself still? To the next one, they haven't come back yet?
Yeah. Not yet.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ines Safroff.
1 second, please.
Sorry.
Okay. The next case on the agenda, case number 19148, I. Safarov Real Properties LLC, 14 Banks Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the west side of Bank Avenue, 151 feet north of West Main Street. The property is zoned CB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 5 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area of a lot from 60% to 75%, to reduce the minimum parking from 27 spaces to 3 spaces, to reduce the minimum required truck loading space from 1 to 0, to reduce the minimum parking setback from the north property line from 6 feet to 2 feet, to reduce the minimum parking setback from the south property line from 6 feet to 5 feet for a proposed 2-story dental office.
Good evening.
Good evening. One more time, I apologize. I'm a little bit new to this whole process. I'm Dr. Safroff, and I would like Jackie and Pong to represent me today.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Could you state your name and address for the record, please? Spell your last name so we get it.
Sure. It's Jacqueline Peranto, Peranteau, Key Civil Engineering, 664 Blue Point Road, Holtzville, New York. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. I'm here tonight representing my client, Inessa Safra, the owner and applicant, and the dentist who will be operating this business. The subject property is currently occupied by a medical office building, and the application proposes to remove the existing building and infrastructure and construct a new 2-story building that consists of 1,613 square foot medical office, a small increase to the current footprint of the existing building, and a second floor of 1,776 square foot for a professional office on the second floor. In addition, there'll be associated site improvements such as landscaping, lighting, drainage, a new sanitary system. Further, the site will provide a small parking lot to better service the existing patients. We are here tonight for a number of variances. However, the one that I feel needs the most discussion is the rear yard setback, as it speaks to the placement of the building on the property. We understand that the town adopted a comprehensive plan just recently. The plan identifies this area as downtown Smithtown and places a transit village sub-district, which encourages communal parking lots, large building masses, and placement of buildings closer to the front property line. The town is looking to have this plan guide the development of this area over the course of the next 20 years. Although the intent of this recently adopted plan is not to provide on-site parking, providing parking to Inessa's business is critical to its success. It's not viable to locate the building in the front of the parcel while still providing a parking lot in the rear. If we were to place a drive aisle and to access the parking in the rear, the building would be half its width, as the property is very narrow and the overall size of the parcel is small. As such, the only feasible location for the building to allow any off-street parking is to place the building further back on the property. Just today, my client and myself spoke to the adjacent property owner of lots 22 and 23. They own the vacant bank and parking lot that surrounds our property to the north and west. The property owner is not willing to provide us with any form of a cross-access agreement. Unfortunately, had we been able to secure a cross-access agreement, we'd be able to push the building forward and put our parking in the rear a little bit more in line with that future intent of the town comprehensive plan. As such, the only option that we have is the layout that we have presented. Inessa purchased this property in 2020 with the hopes of developing her practice in Smithtown. She has many elderly and handicapped patients and many who are treated with sedation. It's very critical for her to have the convenience of parking to assist these patients. She currently uses a portable ramp and personally assists her clients to their vehicles. At the time she purchased this, again, she was unaware that the town, in fact, the town wasn't even starting the preparation of this comprehensive plan at the time the property was purchased. The nearest parking lot, public parking lot to the property is about 500 feet north of the site, which could meet some needs, but not most of her patients' needs. It is critical, again, for the success of this business that she's able to have the convenience of a few parking stalls to accommodate these patrons. She cannot rely on the possibility of any available on-street parking fronting her site for them to utilize. In summary, we feel this hardship is not self-created, but a circumstance of the town's comprehensive redevelopment plan as well as a function of the parcel size. In my opinion, allowing this parcel to be developed as shown would not hinder the town's ability to implement their plan over the next 20 years as they have outlined. The proposed building promotes redevelopment of existing property, it appeals to current and future commercial and office tenants, and it increases property value and income streams for the property owner, which is consistent with the intent of the new zoning district. For the purposes of the hearing, I will go through each of the variances and highlight the 5 points, unless the board wishes me. There's a lot, so I'm happy to skip it as it was provided in the written documentation of our application.
It's provided in the written document?
It is.
Then you really don't have to do it, unless you want to.
No, it's, again, it's, with all of the variants that we are seeking, the minimum rear yard setback, maximum gross floor area is a very minor increase. It's from 60% is code, we're at 75%. This is a function of the fact that our lot area is slightly smaller than 5,000 square feet. Under the new comprehensive plan, there is no maximum FAR, so it would be very consistent with that future zone that the town's looking to do. And should we have a full 5,000 square foot property size, our variance would not be as significant. The other thing that's driving the square footage of our building is the fact that we do have 2 floors. So some of the area within our building is a common staircase, a hallway, separate means of ingress and egress to the different floors. And the need for that second floor is economical. The project costs are such that it just isn't economical for her to construct the 1-story building for her own needs. She needs a tenant to provide a little bit of income to help offset the initial cost of the construction. Some of the other variances that we're seeking, reduction of the parking and reduction of the loading space, is also very consistent with where the town is looking to go with this area of the downtown Smithtown area and their overlay district, or sub-district, I should say. So us even providing parking is probably more than what is being sought out for by the town. However, again, this is very critical to the needs of the business and for it to operate successfully. Loading, we don't feel is needed. Deliveries would be maybe once a week with a FedEx truck or UPS truck, US mail on a daily basis, and they would typically just pull over on the street to make a delivery. If there was an available spot, they can certainly pull in for a short time to drop off a package. The other two variances are in regard to setback for the parking that we are providing. On the north side, there's 2 feet of buffer provided to the parking where 6 is required, and on the south, there's 5 foot. We have provided sufficient space for a car overhang, and this is a function of the width of the property. The property is 50 feet in width. We need a 20-foot stall, a 24-foot drive, and we are just left with the 6 feet for our buffer to share. So that's what's driving those variances, and we think that we're able to still provide some nice landscaping on either side, and we can provide some, the parking is on the side where there currently is parking. So we don't feel that there's an impact to that neighbor at this time in reducing that required buffer. So we do feel that these variances are not going to have any impact on the adjacent properties or the neighborhood. We don't feel that they're substantial in nature. I would highlight as well that in regard to the rear yard, it might sound very substantial. The new code, the overlay district of the comprehensive code is reducing that rear yard setback to a 10-foot instead of the 50, so where we have 5, so that's not as significant in the direction of where the town is going for rear yards in this area. We don't feel that this benefit can be achieved by any other alternatives. I have laid out numerous number of concepts, and the architect has prepared numerous floor plans, and the building is designed in such a way that we're able to fit 4 exam rooms and a small waiting room and a reception area, and that's and it's still a small building, but it suits the needs that she has at this time. We don't feel that these variances will cause any adverse effect on the environment, and we don't feel that these were caused by the applicant or the former owner, and that these are circumstances of the property as well as the changes of the town code. So in summary, we are respectfully requesting that the board grant this application as presented. The need for the parking is essential to the success of Inessa's practice, as is the redevelopment and the upgrade to the property and the building. She cannot rely on the possibility of any available on-street parking in front of her site. And we understand that the town recently did adopt this plan and that the placement of the building is not aligned with the intent. However, we still believe that allowing this parcel to be developed, as shown, will not hinder the town's ability to implement their plan in this area over the course of the next 20 years. The proposed project promotes redevelopment of an existing tired property, and it appeals to the future development and the economic benefit of this area. Be happy to open it up to any questions.
How many parking spaces are you providing?
3.
You're providing 3. You have a business, a dental business on the first floor. You have staff, clients, and then a professional building office up on top?
Correct.
Where are all those people going to park?
The employees will be parking on the street in the public parking lot. Those 3 spaces are going to be reserved. One is a handicap space. The other 2 will be reserved for the patients that have procedures scheduled, so
Okay.
that they can easily, make their way back to their vehicle, to the person that's picking them up.
Okay. All right, so when you lease out the second floor,
Yes,
there'll be a provision telling those people they cannot park in those 3 spaces?
that's correct.
They have to park 500 feet away? or-
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions?
Well, I share your concern. You're going to have 4 examining rooms. You're going to have 1 restricted space because it's for the handicapped. So you're going to operate those 4 examining rooms. You're going to have the doctor and the doctor's staff park someplace else because you can't count on on-street parking. And you're going to have just 2 parking spaces. And then the upstairs, whatever that use might be, they're going to have absolutely no access.
No parking.
No parking.
The professional office upstairs will have no parking, yes. And there are 4 exam rooms, but there won't be 4, dental procedures happening. There could be a cleaning that's happening in one, so that person can walk to their vehicle that's parked on the street. So it's going to be scheduled and planned in such a manner that they will have those parking spaces available for the patient that needs it.
Did you look at any alternative designs that might provide more parking?
We
Even
did.
if-
We looked at putting the parking in the front and putting putting the building in the front and the parking in the rear. Obviously, it's a mirror image of what you're seeing. The only way it works is if we can get access through the adjacent lot to get to that lot, to get to the parking that we're providing. If we were to provide a drive aisle on our property, so we're 50 feet wide. So if we're going to provide a driveway to get vehicles to the front and back of the property, that's 24 feet in width. That means our building is only 24 feet in width with with a zero setback to the side lot line. That's too narrow to even provide, and I can let the architect speak about the floor plan and how that would, create a problem with even trying to lay out the building, and what they would accomplish. They'd maybe get 1 or 2 exam rooms out of that layout. It really wouldn't work.
I mean, it's not for me to tell you how to design your building, but I have a client who used the entire first floor of a small building for parking and put the 2 stories of building above it. At least then you'd have parking on site more than 3 spaces. It would change your construction costs, no doubt.
Yes, which are
Okay.
already driving themselves up to a point that's becoming Yeah, I mean, the intent of the overlay, the transit district overlay in the downtown Smithtown is to have no parking. I mean, the town's vision for this area is that buildings will be constructed with 0 parking, that there is no requirement for it, that, that there will be other public lots made available, or a parking garage that gets constructed, or shared lots that are used by the businesses, as well as what's available on the street.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Planning?
Just have a quick question for Jackie. I know we communicated earlier. You said that there was no chance of getting a cross-access agreement.
We had a conversation with Sam Strausman today.
Okay. All right. Mr. Chairman, I think Jackie presented everything pretty clearly. The town board, probably somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks ago, adopted the comprehensive plan for the downtown Smithtown area. And as she stated, it does require a certain type of layout design for the buildings, for the parking and access. And planning did recommend that the applicant follow that plan in developing the site. However, with all the information that she put on the record, it's really up to the board to decide what they feel is best for this particular situation.
Sabrina?
Chairman, to ensure full compliance with our environmental review, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant, as well as any comments from the public before we make a recommendation to the board. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Is everyone here? Okay.
Read that back into the record? Yeah?
We're going to go back to Mr. Lee.
19146?
Is this 146?
Hmm.
Do you have the affidavits of posting? Affidavits?
Good evening, gentlemen.
No, you have the affidavits of postings and mailings.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19146, Chang Woo Lee, 151 Plymouth Boulevard, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northwestern terminus of Plymouth Boulevard and Central Road. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 45 feet for a proposed 144-square-foot first-floor addition. To permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 144-square-foot first-floor addition and proposed 39-square-foot front portico.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Miguel Ramirez.
Okay, one second. I need the applicant first.
Oh, the applicant is.
Yeah. Could you
Chang Wu Li.
state your name and address for the record, sir?
Okay, my name is Chang Wu Li. The address is 151 Plymouth Boulevard, Smithtown 11787.
Okay, thank you. Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine, thank you. Sir, could you state your name and address for the record and spell your last name so we get it correct?
Okay. My name is Miguel Ramirez. Miguel. Oh, the last name is Ramirez. Ramirez.
Thank you.
As the variance is right there, we are proposing a small front facade addition in the first floor, only one-story addition. And then also, this is one of the variances that we got right here is instead of a 50 feet from the front yard, we are proposing 45 feet. Actually, the house exists with 45. The second floor overhand exists with 45 feet from the average from the front yard setback, the front yard property line. Also, what we are proposing here is just a small addition, and then the owner just want to improve the front facade of the house. It's only 144 square foot. And the other variances, like you said, is just because of the environmental protection. In this case, is environmentally, it says right here, sensitive lands to be altered, where the depth to the water is equal to or less than 10 feet. But actually, what we are doing is just one-story foundation, only go down like 3 feet, just only 3 feet below the frost line.
Okay.
Right,
All
that's up.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No? Planning,
No, thank you.
Sabrina.
Mr. Chairman, due to the presence of high groundwater as stated on the property, the applicant has been notified that the submission of new test hole data within the past 6 months is required in order for us to complete our environmental review. So until we have that information, no decision will be made tonight.
Okay. So you have to get a new test hole done.
Yes, we ordered already.
You
Well, there was a Mark Geoscience, maybe you know him. He's the only guy that used to do the test hole. He told me that he, I'm sorry?
Know the word that you said. We ordered already what?
Who did you order from?
Where?
The company you said that you ordered the test hole from?
Yeah, they are searching for the utilities, underground utilities. And then he told me that once they knows where they are, the location of the utilities, they're gonna proceed to do the test hole. He was supposed to do it like the last week, but he told me that he needs to do that first. Once he fetch the whole information, he's gonna go there, okay?
So we can't make a decision till you get the test hole data and submit it,
Yes,
all right?
actually, because like I told you, we only go down 3 feet. Only 3 feet, that's gonna be the depth of the footing
No,
foundation.
I understand that, but
All
they
right.
just need the test hole data,
Okay.
all right?
We are waiting for this guy. He's supposed to come by next week, I guess, okay?
Fine, okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19144, All Hands on Deck LI, Inc., 945 Middle Country Road, St. James. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Hillside Avenue and Middle Country Road. The property is zoned WSI. Excuse me. The applicant is requesting a special exception for a repair garage, a variance of a special exception standard to eliminate the required 6-foot opaque fence enclosure for outdoor storage, to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Hillside Avenue from 50 feet to 31 feet, to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Middle Country Road from 50 feet to 45 feet for a proposed 869-square-foot building addition, to reduce the minimum parking setback from the front property line on Hillside Avenue from 25 feet to 13 feet, to reduce the minimum parking setback from the front property line on Middle Country Road from 25 feet to 5 feet, to reduce the minimum required parking from 16 to 15 spaces.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Anthony Guardino. I'm a partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz in Hopog, and I represent the applicant, All Hands on Deck LLC, or All Hands on Deck LI LLC.
Excuse me, Anthony?
yes.
Sorry. Affidavits?
Thank you. Almost forgot. Thank you, Blaze. So the applicant is seeking a special permit to maintain an existing repair garage. You probably know it as the former Bruno's Garage. And they also need an area variance relief related to its plans to add a small one-story, 869-square-foot rear addition to create some additional service bays in the building. The new facility, even after it's expanded, will still be a modest 2,644 square feet. So even after it's expanded, it's still a relatively small building. The applicant, and Jackie and I have appeared before the planning board in connection with its request for a change of zone a couple of months back. The property was zoned office business, and we were seeking a change of zone to WSI, which this property had been zoned in the past. It had been zoned from WSI to OB, and we were asking to put it back so that we could obtain the special permit for the repair garage. And after that meeting, we did receive a favorable recommendation, which is in your book at Exhibit 1. Thereafter, we appeared before the town board in connection with the change of zone, and again received a unanimous approval from the town board, subject to 2 conditions that my client has no objection to. So now the property is zoned WSI. It permits repair garage with a special exception from this board. The property is about 0.61 actually acres in size. It's located at 945 Middle Country Road in St. James. It is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Middle Country Road and Hillside Avenue. It is currently improved with a 2-story building that's 1,775 square feet, and it is used, as I mentioned, as an auto repair garage. I did some research when we made the change of zone application. This building looks to have been an auto repair garage or even maybe an old gas station from about the 1920s or 30s. So it's been an auto-related use for almost 100 years. The building currently provides only 2 service bays, which 100 years ago was probably adequate when there weren't that many cars, but it is not adequate in 2024. So my client is seeking to add this modest addition to the rear that will create 4 new service bays. It will also, it is also seeking a curb cut, new curb cut on Hillside Avenue in order to access these new service bays, which will be in the back of the building, and the expanded parking lot that is located to the north. There will be other site improvements and upgrades that will be made, including additional landscaping that we believe will help buffer the addition from the residents to the north. The properties in the area are mostly zoned WSI or OB. This site does share an access easement for ingress and egress with the parcel to the east that is zoned OB. And there is a residence to the north, The property is zoned R10, and the owner of that residence appeared at the planning board meeting to monitor the application, didn't say anything, and then afterward approached my client to offer his support. I don't know if he's here tonight or not. But basically, we need this special exception for the repair garage, one variance that relates to the special exception criteria, and a front yard setback variance and a parking setback variance, both from Hillside and Jericho Turnpike. The parking variance that's needed, I'll just kind of skip over that because it's de minimis, it's one car. We just need one car parking variance. And so if I just go through these variances pretty quickly, the first one is the special exception to permit the building to be used as a repair garage, which is actually a special exception, not a variance. As I mentioned, the building has been used for about 100 years as a repair garage, and this building complies with all of the general and special criteria for repair garages, with the exception of the requirement that any outdoor storage area be enclosed by a 6-foot opaque fence. And planning recommends approval, subject to that condition. And we went in originally asking not to install that opaque fence around to create the entire enclosure because it eats up parking in the parking lot, reduce the number of parking spaces, but planning came back and with the request that we at least install fencing to the north and to the west to block the view from the house to the north and from the street to the west. And my client has found that condition to be acceptable, so that's not a problem. And also to screen the dumpster. The variance is to reduce the minimum front yard setback from the, for the proposed addition from Middle Country Road and Hillside, in one place from 50 feet to 45 feet, and in another place from 50 feet to 31 feet. As planning noted in the planning advisory report, the building is already set back this 31 feet and from Hillside, and it's set back 19 feet from Middle Country Road. So planning concluded that the variances would not have any adverse impact on the area and recommended approval. The next variance was to reduce the parking setback from Middle Country Road and Hillside, one place from 25 feet to 5 at Hillside, and from 25 feet to 13 feet at, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. The first one was at Middle Country Road, and the second was at Hillside. Again, planning noted these to be pre-existing conditions and that they're not likely to have an adverse impact on the neighborhood and recommended approval. Parking, as I mentioned, the planning board recommended as a de minimis approval because it's de minimis. And then as the, with regard to the 6-foot fence, as I mentioned previously, my client has no objection to that condition. But we do have one concern that among the conditions that was requested in connection with the enclosure is that our client install bollards at the head of each parking space to make sure that the cars don't jump the curb and park in the landscaped area. We did look at that. Jackie actually looked at this, and you know, it's a pretty significant expense. It's about $12,000 for something that my client has assured us will not happen. So what we would like to do is to modify that condition. One, we would agree to install the bollards if it becomes a problem, because otherwise you're just spending really for no reason. And the other thing is we'd like to do is to invest that money in the landscaping. You know, if we have to plant evergreen shrubs, which is what the condition is requesting, at 6 feet high, if we plant them right at the curb line, the tree is effectively a bollard. So to put a bollard in front of a tree to protect against somebody parking in the landscape area, it just seems wasteful. And it's expensive, and our client is a small businessman. He's trying to start up his shop here, and you know, really doesn't have an extra $12,000 to install bollards to protect trees that will protect against the parking in the landscaped area. So we would ask the board to consider that modification of the conditions. Otherwise, we're fine with it. So I would like to call Jackie. Jackie, you want to explain the site plan?
So, oh, sorry. Jacqueline Peranto, Key Civil Engineering, 664 Blue Point Road, Holtzville, New York, site engineer for the project. So as described, we do have cross-access. We've added a curb cut on Hillside Avenue, which is going to help with the circulation flow. For anyone who's familiar with the property, it kind of appears that a makeshift curb cut has occurred in the past in that location, so I think it makes perfect sense to put one there. There was also a dedication that had to happen along Hillside Avenue, so a lot of these variances that we're seeking with the setback to the parking or the setback to the building along Hillside is just encumbered even more by a 15-foot taking that just never got completed in the past. And so as part of this application that will happen, and that land will be dedicated to the town of Smithtown as part of the roadway. But the property has a one-way flow in the front of the building. Access into the garage doors are located on the south side of the building. There are garage doors on the back, so a vehicle can kind of come in and out through the building. The back row of parking along the north property line is the storage of vehicles for that he's going to be working on, and then the row in front of that is utilized as parking. There's a trash enclosure with fence, a fenced trash enclosure, and there'll also be some storage of drums with waste oil and antifreeze and other products that are used in his business, and those will also be in a fenced enclosure adjacent to the trash enclosure. The property will have upgrades to lighting, landscaping, new drainage, sanitary system in compliance with the current requirements of the health department. And it'll be a vast improvement to the current condition of the property today.
Jackie, can you just explain about the landscaping and the bollard and how it would be
Absolutely.
duplicative?
Sure. So what I brought with me tonight is our landscape drawing. As we're continuing to work on the project, these drawings are being developed. And so we had proposed, the town is looking for type 2 plantings, which consist of 6 to 7 foot evergreens of various species are permitted by planning. What we're showing here are green giant arborvitaes along the back row, right over here. So those are going to be 6 to 7 foot at the time of planting, and they're substantial. They'll create a row of those evergreens. We also want to maintain as many deciduous trees as we can within this area and maintain that, current forested feel that's back there. So we're, just providing that row at the curb line, and that will stop a vehicle from going up and over that curb. So I just felt that the addition of the bollards, as much as I can understand their purpose, was just a little bit redundant and a cost that we didn't want to see the client have to incur. In addition, there'll be plantings along the west side of that parking to also buffer any view from Hillside Avenue of those parked vehicles.
There'll also be plantings in back of the evergreens that you're going to be putting in?
If the planning department would request that we add some additional or we stagger them in such a way, we can certainly increase some of the landscaping there. But there's a lot of deciduous trees. So again, we're just looking to, they're a little hard to see on there, but yeah, we're just looking to maintain that. And sometimes the evergreens have trouble growing in shade. So we'll try to find something that could thrive a little bit better. Perhaps like a rhododendron or something might thrive a little bit better in that shady condition.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
None, thank you.
Planning?
So as Anthony stated, planning did prepare a planning advisory report. Everybody's received a copy of it. We did recommend conditional approval with 3 conditions. And the conditions are subject to review and approval by the Board of Site Plan Review. So any changes that they would like to propose be made to the plan, even beyond approval by this board, would still be subject to review by the board that they would have to go to next.
All right. Sabrina?
No, thank you.
Nothing? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19140, Comac Shopping Center LLC, BJ's Wholesale Club, 44 Veterans Memorial Highway, Comac. The location of the property is the southeast corner of Jericho Turnpike and Veterans Memorial Highway. The property is owned NB. Excuse me. The applicant is requesting a special exception for a filling station, a variance of a special exception standard to permit a filling station within 1,200 feet of an existing filling station, a variance of a special exception standard for a filling station to permit signage that does not comply with Article 10 of the zoning ordinance, a variance of a special exception standard for a filling station to not, reduce the required 50-foot densely planted buffer from 50 feet to 10 feet. A special exception for a propane exchange, a variance of a special exception standard to permit a propane exchange that is not an accessory use to a filling station, a variance of a special exception standard to increase the maximum storage capacity of propane storage from 200 gallons to 2,000 gallons, a variance to reduce the minimum parking from 1,757 spaces to 846 spaces, to increase the maximum area of a ground sign from 32 square feet to 156 square feet for sign numbers 10 and 11, to increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 17 feet for signs 6 and 9, to increase the maximum height of a ground sign from 15 feet to 16 feet for sign number 11, to increase the number of wall signs from a maximum of 1 to 2 signs for sign numbers 6 and 9, to permit a wall sign not to face a public street for sign numbers 6 and 9, to permit a prohibited sign for 2 signs on a canopy for sign numbers 6 and 9, to permit a sign with red and green illuminated portions within 100 feet from the point of intersection of the nearest street lines for signs 10 and 11.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Anthony Guardino, partner with the law firm of Farrell, Fritz, and Hopog, and I am representing Comac Shopping Center Associates, which is an affiliate of the File organization, which is the owner of the Comac Plaza Shopping Center in Comac. The applicant is seeking 2 special permits as well as several variances relating to the special permit criteria, parking, and signage in connection with its proposal to add a fueling station and accessory propane sales at the existing BJ's Wholesale Club in Comac and a bank pad within remote portions of the shopping center parking lot. I have with me tonight to present to you Chris Robinson, a professional engineer with R&M Engineering, and also Wayne Muller, a professional traffic engineer with R&M Engineering. Jeffrey Black from BJ's is also here, and Drew Arnold from the File organization to answer any questions. The property, I'm sure you're all familiar with it, is about 17.5 acres in size, located at 2 Veterans Highway at the intersection of Jericho Turnpike and Veterans Highway in Comac. The property is located in the town's NB zoning district. It is currently developed with a 1-story, just under 170,000 square foot multi-tenant shopping center, which is occupied by a number of retail and restaurant uses, including 104,000 square foot BJ's Wholesale Club that was approved by the town, and this board also granted relief in 2020. The shopping center is located in an area that has historically been developed with retail and other commercial uses. I know you're all familiar with the site. Directly to the east is the large Kimco shopping center that is anchored by Target, Whole Foods, Hobby Lobby, Harbor Freight, et cetera. That shopping center also contains 4 pads that are occupied by Miller's Ale House, LA Fitness, Banfield Pet Hospital, Party City, Moe's Southwest, and Chase Bank. The Candlelight Diner and a Phillips 76 gas station are also located to the east of Comac Plaza, but they are out parcels of the Kimco Center. To the west, you have the Comac Corner Shopping Center, which is partially located in the town of Smithtown, partially in the town of Huntington. And then to the north, you have a Bola fueling station, a new Bola convenience store, a Bola car wash, a Mavis Tire, and a Bank of America bank. And then to the south, you have multifamily residences in the Fairfield Garden Apartment Complex. So the applicant is seeking special permits and variance relief in order to add this BJ's fueling station with 8 fuel dispensers and an accessory propane sales facility to the existing BJ's, and to construct the 3,800 square foot bank pad that will have a drive-through. And that bank pad will be located in the northeast corner of the site in an unused portion of the parking lot. And you can see that on the site plan that was up on the screen. The BJ's fueling station was proposed originally to be located in front of the shopping center, but the planning department had suggested that it be relocated to the back of the center, directly behind the Michaels store and adjacent to a large recharge basin. BJ's acquiesced despite the limited visibility of this location, but it assumed at the time when it acquiesced that the town would support some kind of signage on the gas station to identify that it's behind the shopping center. The 8 fuel dispensers will be covered with about a 5,000 square foot canopy that protects the customers from the elements and provides proper lighting. It also provides an overhead fire suppression system that can quickly extinguish a fire in the event of an emergency. Despite the station's location in the back of the shopping center, this canopy was asked to be architecturally enhanced by the town. And my client agreed to do that. So it's not the simple canopy, it's a slightly nicer canopy with a little bit of a pitch roof. In lieu of a large monument sign, my client is proposing to add 2 small signs to the face of the canopy that faces the large Kimco Center to the east, and that would identify the BJ's fueling station and the fuel prices. These signs are much smaller than the canopy signage that is found on the 2 fueling stations that are located adjacent to and across the street from Comac Plaza. So if you go to your book and look at Exhibit 10, the first photograph, or there are 2 photographs on that page, and they show the Phillips 76 gas station. It's right there. And that has canopy signage actually on all 4 sides of the canopy. And then if you flip the page, you have the signage at the new Bola gas station that advertises the car wash, which is next door. And that signage is on 2 sides of the canopy. And again, that's directly across the street from the BJ's. And then the last photo I just took because BJ's is proposing to advertise the fuel price on the canopy. And I was looking for an example and saw that right in the middle of the town, at the top of the hill there, across from La Familia, there's that gas station, and there is a small sign there on the canopy that advertises the price of fuel. This fueling station will be screened from view from the Fairfield Apartments. We proposed a 10-foot wide densely planted buffer of evergreen trees, which is actually double the width of what's there today. Planning has requested that we increase that buffer from 10 feet to 20 feet. And my client has acquiesced to that. We're going to make the site work so we'll comply with that condition. The accessory propane sales facility will be located on the west side of the shopping center, directly in front of the BJ's Tire Center. So that's something kind of the opposite side of the property. And there will be a maximum storage capacity of 2,000 gallons is what is being requested. The propane sales facility will be screened by a 6-foot high fence, bollards, and evergreen shrubs that will be planted around the perimeter of the property of the pad, and that complies with the request of planning. Planning has asked that there be adequate landscaping, so you can see on the yellow box there that the landscaping is on all sides except for where you have to get in, and there will be bollards and fencing all around around that pad. And as presently configured, and pursuant to a variance that was granted by this board on September 15th of 2020, the shopping center currently provides a total of 1,073 parking spaces, where 1,715 spaces are required. With the proposed improvements, the required parking will be increased by 44 spaces to 1,715 spaces, and at the same time, there will be a reduction, in a physical decrease in the number of parking spaces of 227 spaces. And so there will be a deficiency of 913 stalls, and Wayne Muller will be speaking shortly, and he will address that and demonstrate how the 846 spaces that are going to be provided will actually be sufficient for all of the uses in this shopping center. I'm going to go through, there's a whole bunch of special exceptions and variances. Just to keep this moving, I'm going to skip over the ones where planning is recommending straight-out approval, because I don't think we need to talk about that. That's a good thing. And I'll just focus on the ones where there are either conditions that we have concerns about or where there's a recommendation for denial. So, and then I'll call Chris Robinson and then Wayne. So the first is the special exception to permit a filling station. So planning recommends approval, but recommends approval with certain conditions that we have concerns about. And I'll get that to that in a minute. Same thing with the accessory propane sales facility, recommending approval, but with certain conditions that we need to get into a little bit more. To permit the fueling station within 1,200 feet, that's a recommended approval. I won't talk about that. One of the special permit criteria requires that the fueling facility have signage that fully complies with the town's sign regulations, and that's the big one for us. So we need to talk about that, and we'll get into a little more detail. The fueling facility with a 10-foot densely planted buffer, we just talked about that. We'll increase that to 20, which is what planning is requesting. So that takes care of that one. I don't think we need to go into that anymore. Then there was an issue about the propane sales facility not being accessory to a filling station. I would point out that if the filling station's approved, then it is arguably accessory to the filling station. It might be in a different location, but it's on the same piece of property. So I guess that just remains to be seen. And then, we wouldn't need this variance at all if that's the case. In any event, planning recommends approval on the condition that it be sufficiently screened to reduce its visual impact. My client has agreed to do that. I mentioned that. One of the, with respect to the propane sales, the storage capacity that's proposed is 2,000 gallons. Planning is recommending approval on the condition that the maximum amount of propane storage be limited to 1,000 gallons. When you do the math, 1,000 gallons will allow for the filling of just 200 barbecue tanks, which seems like a lot, but on a weekend, a busy weekend, that's not a lot. There's about 5 gallons in a 20-pound barbecue tank, and and some people bring slightly larger tanks, et cetera. So it's not that many, and the concern is that the less capacity that's being stored there, the more trucks have to come and deliver. So you need more frequent deliveries of propane. The storage of the 2,000 gallons will be adequately screened as planning is requesting. It has to meet all of the NFPA standards, and the plans will have to be reviewed and approved by the fire marshal. So planning's recommendation to cut the amount of storage in half seems somewhat arbitrary and unreasonable. I mean, I understand the concern, but if it satisfies the agencies that have jurisdiction over that type of use, I think that they should rely on that. I just don't see the basis for cutting it in half. I think what was cited to me was that there's another BJ's that has a 1,000-gallon tank, and it's like, well, that was actually one of the first BJ's that had one, and they've learned that they're not putting a larger tank in there because they don't need it. They know they need a larger tank, and that's why they're asking for a larger tank here. The site variances to address the parking, not going to go through that. Wayne will touch on that, and it's a recommendation approval anyway. So the signs are really the issue for BJ's. So the fueling facility is proposing 2 wall signs on the east elevation of the canopy. It was mentioned at signs 6 and 9. I don't know if we could bring the canopy up on the... Okay, so the signs are just at the top of the canopy on the right. One will say BJ's Gas, and one will have the price of the fuel. Those signs are not oriented towards any residences. They're actually oriented to the large parking lot that is to the east, where it needs to be oriented, because that's where the customers are. The applicant is also proposing modest increases to the previously approved ground signs that are located at the eastern and western entrances to the shopping center. So if you can bring those up, that would be great. So there we go. So those are well, on the left is the existing sign. So what BJ's is asking, and we have modified this drawing slightly, so I'll just explain in a minute. So we were adding the fuel price to the right side. We were also adding a BJ's Gas sign. I understand planning is trying to minimize the amount of area of the sign, so BJ's has agreed to remove the BJ's Gas and just leave the price of the fuel. And
What sign number is that?
that one is 10 or 11. Well, the ground signs are 10 and 11. That particular sign, that sign is 10?
10?
10. And then
Thanks.
the next, when you flip the page, so that's the sign that's closest to the gas, the fueling. That's the entrance to the east. And then if you flip to the next photo, you'll see, and these are in your booklet as well, you'll see the existing sign that is to the, I'm sorry, no, sign 10 is the one on the wall, my apologies. Sign 10 is on the wall, that's the one on the west. Sign 11 is the sign to the east, and that's the one that's closest to the gas station. Yeah, they should be in there. They're just not in the, yeah. So in your book, the sign drawings are correct. These were the sign drawings that were given to planning earlier. So I just want to point out the differences. But the point is, there will be a reduction in the signage in the area for the ground signs. One of them will be below what the board previously granted at 118 square feet. The second one needs a slight increase. But again, we're eliminating what we can eliminate. But planning is recommending, in the planning advisory report, a flat-out denial. Like, they don't want no increase in size. So sign 10 will be 112.67 square feet, which is less than the 118 square feet that was previously approved, as I mentioned. The size of sign 11 has been reduced from 156.22 square feet to 141.34 square feet. So it's just 24.34 square feet larger than the signs that were approved in 2020. So 24 square feet is very little. The town regularly allows fueling stations to advertise the price of fuel on electronic signs at or near the roadway. So I'm perplexed by the recommendation for denial, because you have, and I'll get to it, there's a recommendation for the denial of the canopy signs, there's a recommendation for denial of the ground signs. So, and we're asked to relocate the facility behind the shopping center with no signage at all. That's just not going to work. We have to have signage. And, these are not signs, they're existing ground signs, and the canopy signs are not facing any residences at all. They're facing a parking lot. And they're very small to boot, you can see from the photograph. So, I just think that's it's an unreasonable request by planning. I know they do a good job here, and I understand they want to minimize the number of signs, but you have to give us something. We don't have any sign. So
Is this BJ's filling station, is it open to the public?
it's membership. It's open to the members, but
When I see this great price for gas, and I pull in, I get turned away?
you have to be a BJ's member. Yeah, you have to be you don't have to be a member of this BJ's, but you
No,
have to be a
no,
BJ's
I
member.
understand.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you're showing this price on a public road, and people are driving I think they're gonna assume they can just pull in and get gas.
Well, I understand the point, but I think there's an expectation for people today that, you know, between Costco gas and BJ's gas, that there's membership gas prices, as well as, you know, I know I'm personally not a member, my wife's a member, but she has the card, so I don't go to BJ's. I can't get the gas at BJ's. But that would encourage people to become members, I would think, because the
Okay.
price is
All right,
pretty
so
good
it's-
price.
so a selling
It's a
point.
good price, it's a good price. Okay,
Is there any reason why you couldn't say member price? Or-
well, I don't know exactly. Is there-
I mean, I think Ed
does
makes
anybody
an
wanna address
interesting
the
point.
signs? Jeff, do the signs make it clear that it's for members only, or could, right?
Well, one second. If you're gonna talk, can you introduce yourself?
Jeff Black with BJ's. So there is members-only placards on the pumps themselves. We typically don't do the members-only price on the sign. We do the credit card promotion price on the sign, as well as the member price, so. The member price and the credit card promotion price.
The other recommendation, again, they all relate to the same signs, because there are only 4 signs here that are being proposed.
Well, it does say members only.
It does. That piece is out. So the members, yeah, the new, because we're trying to reduce the size of the sign, so we cut that band out. So, as originally proposed, it had members only. If we allow a larger sign, we could put it back in. So, the other variances relate to the height of the wall sign, so the canopy sign can only be 15 feet tall. We're asking for 17 feet. Again, recommends denial. Planning recommends denial. There's another sign there from 15 to 16 feet, and that's the ground sign, sign 11. Again, it's only 1 foot, but planning is recommending denial. The planning doesn't want us to have any additional signage beyond what we have there today, yet, you know, we're proposing and they're actually recommending approval for the gas station, but without any signs. And then we have the situation where the request for wall signs that do not face a public way. Planning is recommending denial, and this particular recommendation for denial seems to be the most arbitrary of all, because if you look directly to the east of the proposed BJ's filling station, there's the large shopping center, right, that we all know, the Kimco Center, that has 4 pad sites. If you look at Exhibit 9, you'll see the photos in your booklet, Exhibit 9. So there are 4 pad sites. All of the pad sites actually have signs that don't face a public road. Everything that we're asking for, the neighboring shopping center has, all the pads have it, but this shopping center or this gas facility they're recommending denial. If you look, there's a Party City, there's Ulta Beauty, LA Fitness, Miller's Ale House, all have significant signage oriented inward. Makes sense. It's a very large parking lot, and you want to identify those uses. The Party City, Banfield Pent Hospital, Moe's Southwest, and Chase Bank, they don't have inward-facing signs, but they have sideways-facing signs, and they face a drive aisle. Again, they don't face a public road, and that's what the code requires. So that's another example. BJ's is proposing to add just 2 small signs. One is at 22.2 square feet and another at 28.1 square feet on the eastern elevation of the canopy, facing towards the parking lot. And just like the 7 neighbors, 7 neighboring businesses, but planning has inexplicably recommended that this board deny the BJ's relief that it has granted to these other businesses, and rightfully so, even though BJ's is looking to do the same thing. So that to me, that I'm perplexed by that. They permit a sign on a canopy. Again, recommended denial. I know some of these are redundant, but they're different variances. If you look at exhibit Exhibit 9 or 10, I guess it's 10. I think it's 10 in your book. Planning is saying that they don't, they will not support a sign on a canopy. But if you look at the two filling stations, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, look at the Bolus station across the street, directly across the street from BJ's, and the Phillips 76 station in the neighboring shopping center, which is just a couple of 100 feet away. Both of them have significant signage on multiple sides of the canopy, right? And then you have the Ultra station that I mentioned. BJ's is asking for very modest signage, nowhere near what the others have, and planning is saying no. And again, when you add the two together, you can't have the expanded ground signs, you can't have the wall signs, the canopy signs, no signage. Where does the signage go? How do you identify the gas station that's in the back of the shopping center? It just doesn't seem right, it doesn't seem fair. There are two other conditions that are requested by planning that relate to the site, but they don't relate to any of the special permits directly or to the variances. One talks about the implementation of traffic calming techniques on the, at the on-site intersection near the Michaels and the diner to reduce traffic conflicts. I'm going to let Wayne Muller address that, but my client is willing to look at that. It's kind of a difficult situation beyond my pay grade, and Wayne's going to have to explain that, why it's difficult, but we will look to address that condition. And then the last condition is a request that the canopy, not the sign, but the canopy itself be reduced in length to no more than 180 feet. But the canopy doesn't require any relief. But planning is asking that, or requesting that as a condition, that the canopy be shrunk a bit. There's no rationale provided for that reduction. The canopy is located, it extends between the back wall of the Michaels and the recharge basin that's behind it. So it doesn't really impact anyone. It's not going to create any adverse impacts to the neighbors. And then shortening the canopy and potentially reducing the number of fuel dispensers, we believe, and Chris Robinson will address this in a minute, will adversely affect the operation of the fueling station by potentially extending the queues and the customer waiting times. You'll recall that the fueling facility that was recently approved at the Costco in Comac actually has a total of 12 fueling dispensers. BJ's is asking for 8. So 50% greater at Costco than what BJ's is requesting. And Chris is going to explain that having this single row is actually the most efficient because Costco has, I think it's 3 aisles of 4 pumps, which requires that cars jockey around and parallel park between other cars that are fueling, which just jams up the works. Chris is going to explain that having the single row of 8 dispensers with extra long hoses so that they can fuel on both sides. You don't have to worry about which side you park on, where your filling port is. And that is the most efficient layout because cars will come up, they will fuel, and they will just pull out. There's no jamming up of other cars. So at this point, Chris, you want to come up and just kind of touch on all of these things and explain the site plan?
Good evening. Christopher Robinson, president of R&M Engineering, doing business at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. First, I'll just start with the canopy length. The canopy length, as you have on the screen up there, is roughly 221 feet long. We have reduced it to 208 by removing the kiosk and making it remote, which is what's shown on the site plan. That was one of the comments made, that they were a little different. The sign elevations, we took the kiosk out of the middle of the canopy and put it freestanding behind the canopy, and we're able to shorten the canopy up to 208 feet.
208?
208, yes. To talk about the operation of the fuel, so the customers will be directed to turn in here, come behind the building, and feed the fueling station
Excuse
from
me,
the
Chris,
southwest.
can you take the
Oh, sorry.
microphone?
Oh, it's free, yeah. Sorry about that. The customers will enter right behind Michael's, head west and south, and enter the fueling station in the southwest corner. We have approximately a 50-foot deep queuing area between the concrete patio and the concrete pad and the canopy to the back curb island, where customers can line up at each of the 8 fueling stations and spread out the load. So as you're coming in, you may go to the first one you see. If that one's full, you go to the next one, and you'll have 8 islands or 16 opportunities to pull your car up as you work your way through. So it reduces the amount of people that are queuing behind each pump. The Costco operation that was recently approved and constructed down the block near the Long Island Expressway has what they call tandem gas stations. So you have 3 pump aisles in a row. So if the third car in finishes fueling, they got a small car, they're finished right away, they have to pull out around the other cars, or if the car in the middle is finished first, the next customer in line has to essentially parallel park to get back to that pump aisle. So they got a lot of maneuvering going on around the pumps. BJ's likes it, 1 car is being serviced at a time at each fueling station, the least amount of vehicular conflict, the least amount of decision-making that a customer needs to make while driving around a fueling station. We also consider directing the exiting traffic to specific points. So the north half will exit out of this driveway, the south half can exit out of this driveway, and all head north back to the traffic light. Try to keep a very smooth, continuous operation with minimal vehicular conflicts. One other item I wanted to mention is in the booklets that Mr. Guardino put in front of you, the revised sign plans, we eliminated the height variance on pylon sign 11 and brought it down under the 15 feet that was previously approved by this board. So it's just one more piece that we took off the table. I'll be happy to walk through the site and talk about all the different pieces we have here. I think it's been pretty well explained. The propane operation is located near the tire center. All of the BJ's tire center employees are certified and trained to do the propane filling and are operated. That's why it has to be located right near the tire center office, which is in this corner, so it's easily accessible. And the personnel that operate the tire center will operate the fueling station. The location we picked actually closes off the first drive aisle, so it creates a little bit more throat. So the driveway is a little smoother and less maneuvering here. So we felt that this propane location was a very good location. Providing 2 1,000-gallon tanks cuts down the amount of truck traffic by half. So we can spread out how many times the propane filling truck needs to arrive at this site to 1 or 2 times a week versus much more that have to happen with the smaller tank size. Again, BJ's agreed the original location was identified to be opposite the tire center.
Can I ask a question before he moves on, or do you want me to wait till the end, Ed?
No, you can ask.
I'm just curious as to how many of the facilities on the island have those 2,000-gallon tanks,
That's a good question.
because there's,
Bellport we did too, right? Yeah. The most recently constructed BJ's was in BJ's Bellport, which is in Brookhaven on Sunrise Highway. It has the same exact design of the 2 1,000-gallon tanks. Some of the original BJ's that were constructed didn't have them. They have gone back to add them later on, so it's been a different, but the last ground-up BJ's we did was Bellport, and it had the 2 tanks.
thank you.
Thank
It's easier sometimes if we can take one question that's
Oh,
relevant before you.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm here to answer any questions that you might think of while we're walking through it. We had met many times at planning. Original location for the gas station was opposite, was in this location, but the grade between the building and the street drops off significantly and would have put the canopy in a 24-foot high range versus the 17 that we're asking for, and planning felt very much that they would not support that kind of a height variance on the canopy. We can't tilt the canopy to follow the grade. It's got to be level. It's got the fire protection and stuff built within it. So we worked with BJ's to get them to agree to put the remote location behind the Michaels and remove it from Jericho Turnpike 347 and put it 454 and put it back behind the building. As such, we do need signage in the front to aim people to it, to let them know it's there. I believe there were some comments regarding the bank. We're asking for a 3,800 square foot bank. We have a tenant for the bank. I just can't name the tenant yet because the lease hasn't been executed. But we had two banks that were vying for the spot.
I'm just curious from your studies of traffic, how much more traffic you expect to be coming in and out of the site when you put in the gas filling station?
I'll let my partner, Mr. Muller, take care of that with his traffic report.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any other questions related to the site or the operation if you have any. One other item I think Mr. Guardino mentioned, that so the height of the wall sign, which is on the canopy, we're asking for a height relief to go to 17 feet from 15 feet. The canopy has to be 14 feet above the fuel stations, so I only have a very limited window to keep the sign at 15, which is why we're asking for 17, because of the height of where the canopy has to be. I can't put the sign hanging down below it, otherwise it would get hit by the trucks and the cars that come through and would interfere with the fire protection service that's underneath the canopy.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Wayne Muller, Robinson and Muller Engineering. Our offices are at 50 Street, Huntington, New York. As Mr. Guardino indicated, I'm primarily here to talk about the parking aspects of the project, but I will be able to answer the question about the increase in traffic that we believe would happen as a result of the construction of the bank pad and the gasoline filling station. For the record, I'd like to submit copies of a document prepared by my firm dated June 25, 2024, and I'll submit copies. And I guess I'll just briefly go through the contents of this document. And a lot of the information that's contained herein has been discussed by Mr. Gordon, Mr. Robinson, so I'll just basically hit the highlights. As indicated on the plans prepared by my firm and in my report, we are seeking relief from the ordinance in so much as a total of 1,759 parking spaces are required for the total site, and 846 parking spaces are provided on the property. That translates to 4.82 parking spaces per 1,000 gross square feet, or roughly 5 spaces per 1,000, or 1 space for every 200 square feet. As indicated in my report, we observed the parking activity on the project site on 3 different actually 5 different locations, 5 different times. The first 2 times were in May of 2022, May 13th, and Saturday, May 15th. The second time was on Friday, November 25th, 2022. That was Black Friday. The town planning department had suggested that we go look at Black Friday to see the level of activity that occurred on that site. And then we went, I guess it would be called Gray Saturday, or the day after Black Friday. And then on Saturday, May 11th, 2024. And on page 2 of my report, it summarizes the peak level of parking activity that we saw on the project site during those various different days. On Friday, May 2022, at 2:30 p.m., there were 254 total vehicles parked. On Saturday, 14th, 2022, at 2 p.m., there were 301 vehicles parked. On Black Friday at 1 o'clock, there were 314 vehicles parked. And on the next day, on Saturday, there were 308. And then going back May 11th of this year, there were 341. So the level of parking activity on the project site remains relatively constant on Friday and Saturday, Friday being a little bit less.
Percentage of spaces are we saying were in use then, from what's there currently? I'm sorry, what percentage of spaces are we saying were in use then, in comparison to total?
About 38%.
About a third also.
Yeah, it's roughly around 40%, I believe. So as indicated in my report, we factored in there was a vacant restaurant tenant on the project site that we included in our analysis. Also, the parking level that would be associated with the drive-in bank. Essentially, there really would be no parking except for the 2 employees for the fueling station. And what we found was that there would be the parking occupancy on the project site as a result of all the activity that we anticipate to be generated would be 408 vehicles out of 846 total spaces, translating to a parking occupancy of 48%. And the bulk of the parking activity associated with the project site is located to the north of the building, obviously in front of the retail tenants. In the area of which the bank pad is proposed, there's relatively a very minor amount of parking in that area, as well as the west corner of the project site, and in the rear of the project site where the proposed fueling facility is proposed to be located, there's relatively minor quantity of activity within that area. As it relates to the quantity of traffic that we anticipate, both the additional traffic would be generated by both the fueling facility and the proposed bank pad. We would anticipate a maximum of a total of 32 trips during the Saturday peak hour. That would be 67 entering vehicles and 65 exiting vehicles that would be newly generated to the site.
So that's 132 additional,
Vehicles
okay, thank you.
in 1 hour.
Right.
And the reason for that, as we indicated previously, is that the fueling facility is for BJ's members only. So I would anticipate, I'm a BJ's member, I do not go to get gas at BJ's because it's not at the facility it's not here. This is the store that I go to in Comac. There's one on Daniel Street, which we observed, and that's how we came up with those numbers, which we believe is relatively minor and can easily be absorbed by the existing roadway network, which is pretty sufficient. We are not anticipating any modifications to the site access as a result of the construction of the project. And if we went to an aerial photograph, and I believe as discussed by Mr. Guardino, the applicant's shopping center is really connected to a very, very large shopping center located to the east, which also enjoys multiple access points on 347.
That's 167 additional ingress and egress in an hour.
Correct.
And how many are already occurring at a peak time?
I do not have that number in front of me, but it's fairly substantial. I believe the overall increase, do you have that number, Keith? The shopping center itself currently generates 1,168 vehicles during the peak hour on Saturday. It's roughly an 11% increase in traffic, which we believe could be easily accommodated by the infrastructure that currently exists within the area and not create any undue traffic congestion or hazard. And that's really focusing a large percentage of the traffic to the driveways that are just associated with this shopping center. However, for instance, if someone was to go to BJ's, go to the fueling facility, and then go to Hobby Lobby down at the end to the east of the other shopping center, which this shopping center is fully integrated with, in all likelihood, they would go out one of the other driveways that exist further to the east on 454.
Right, but from the time they enter the site on the north, they're going to have a substantial drive down to your pumps then.
Well, I guess it's about 500 or 600 feet. And again, the shopping center has been, when Macy's went out and BJ's was constructed,
Right.
the site plan was fully re-engineered. The internal driveway, we actually had vehicles, and I mean, Chris, you could probably discuss this better than I can. The reconfiguration of the main driveway located to essentially it was head-in parking that was eliminated. I think you might want to discuss that a little bit better.
Yeah, as far as the traffic calming and the intersection at,
What exactly is traffic calming?
Well, I believe what the town's looking for is a way to more efficiently control the traffic, and you could point to it, Chris, in that intersection right there, because it's a little wonky, to coin an engineering term. So they'd really like to have some pavement markings and maybe some enhanced signage installed to kind of make it a little bit easier for people to traverse. I believe that's the town's, what they'd like to have happen.
the easterly driveway used to be one lane in and one way out. And as cars were heading in the northbound direction, the cars incoming would tend to line up directly with those leaving to make a left turn. So there was a short left turn lane, a through right turn lane, a right turn lane, and an incoming lane. And what happened was the people lining up, most people wanted to head west out of this driveway. And the left turns lining up and the incoming traffic would essentially block this entire lane. There used to be head-in parking all along the BJ's or the Comac Plaza Shopping Center side of the diner. We eliminated all that, widened up the driveway, 3 full lanes that landed in here in order to help alleviate the congestion that was caused by cars backing up, trying to get in and leave the shopping center. One of the problems we have is that the driveway along the side of Michael's and the main drive aisle are slightly offset from each other. If anybody's come through there, it's a little bit of an offset turn at this spot. This dark line that runs through here is the property line. This side is the Target property owned by Kimco, and this side is the File property. So we have a wide drive aisle. What we're looking at doing here is to paint the double yellow line, extend the stop bar off of this island here a little longer, and try to guide the cars heading in the northbound direction to more line up with the drive that brings you up to Jericho Turnpike here. We're going to add in, or we're going to look at adding in what we call dotted yellow lines. If you ever go through an intersection, sometimes you see the dotted line following the left-hand curve. We can bring the double yellow line across through the intersection by making them dotted in order to guide the cars to go in that direction, which would help alleviate the fact that this intersection's so offset. One of the problems is the westbound cars coming from Target, the stop bar's back about 40 feet from where they're going to make the right turn. So the cars will stop and then creep forward for 40 feet before they can actually make the right turn. So we're going to look at trying to do some traffic calming to improve that. There's not much physically I can do because we've done everything possible we can do on the File property. It would require doing physical work or maybe removing parking on the Target property, which we don't control and have no ability to make that issue. But we can do some work and some traffic calming with paint, and we'll propose some ideas back to the planning department to try to make that intersection work better. Yeah. We also, back at the time we built the BJ's, we completely rebuilt the western driveway, opened it up, created a long throat, more exit lanes, rebuilt the traffic signal at both of them, and have spent quite a lot of sum of money on improving those 2 intersections in conjunction with converting the Macy's to BJ's when we took over 100,000 square feet of retail out of the site.
I'm sorry. And the one thing that we did find. Hello? Okay. The one thing we did find was that the level of activity that we anticipated to be generated when we performed the initial studies of the conversion of the Macy's to the BJ's tended to be pretty accurate. I mean, there was the level of activity on the project site, as indicated in the parking observations that we performed, are not all that substantial. I remember back when we did the hearings here, I believe, for the conversion of Macy's to BJ's, there was some concern that BJ's was going to create a tremendous amount of traffic, and it didn't pan out that way. And it actually, this shopping center functions very well, and you can see by the aerial photograph, that's pretty much the way the parking activity on the northern side of the site works out. The majority of the BJ's parking is right in front of the front door, and then there's the large areas in the other side that are vacant, and then in the area of the bank pad, there's really not a lot of activity in that area. And if you went to the south, there's really not a lot of activity where the proposed fueling station is. So I think the project, with the town's planning department's input, we believe we've come up with a very workable plan that'll ensure that this shopping plaza survives going forward into the future.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation. I would just like to say, before you turn it over to the public, that I trust that the board recognizes that BJ's and the file organization are trying to work. We always work closely, as you know, with the planning department, and we appreciate all of their input. And we have made some concessions and modifications to the plan as a result of what their recommendations. But I would just say, though, mostly with respect to the signage, I don't think we're not asking for anything that others right there have already gotten. So I think it's, so I'm hoping the board will recognize that, and that signage, of course, is very important, particularly for a use that is now being placed in the back of the shopping center. It just really needs to be identified. So thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, got one thing.
Yeah, just one more item on the record. On the recommendations from the planning department, it recommended a 20-foot drive aisle to be added at the south end of the canopy. We've looked at that, and we will be providing that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the board?
No more.
No more? Planning?
I guess it's my turn?
I
Okay.
guess so.
Well, I guess the main concern is the signage, so I'll get right to it. Mr. Guardino pointed out two canopy signs in the town, one located at the Bola gas station on Jericho Turnpike, which happens to be the gas station that this proposed filling station would be less than 1,200 feet from, and another, which is the Bolat gas station on the corner of, I believe that's Edgewood Avenue and West Main Street. And these two locations do, in fact, have signage on the canopy. However, and we checked this with the building department, these signs do not have permits or COs. These signs are in violation of the sign ordinance. If you go back and you look at the history of the board with respect to signs, particularly canopy signs, I do recall one application, in fact, it's in Comac, on the corner of Henry Street and Comac Road. It was a proposed 7-Eleven with filling station. It was done, somewhere between 4 and 5 years ago. They were actually granted one canopy sign, non-illuminated, that was basically the 7-Eleven logo, and it faced Henry Street because they were at the corner of Henry and Comac Road, and they felt that that one sign would benefit the applicants with identification people heading north on Comac Road. That is the only canopy sign that I'm aware of that the board has granted variances for in the nearly 11 years that I've been working for the board. And that is the reason why planning wrote in the planning advisory report that we recommend that the signs be omitted from the plan and not be approved. With respect to the two ground signs along Vets Highway, as written in the planning advisory report, these signs are existing at 118 square feet. They were granted very generous variances by this board to go from 32 square feet to 118 square feet at the time of that approval when BJ's was being proposed to this board. What we are recommending is that the size of the signs do not increase because at 118 square feet, they're already near 400% above the requirement within the zoning ordinance. If you increase it to 156 square feet, you're now increasing it to nearly 500 times, or 500% of what the maximum permitted square footage is. Moving away from the signs and going to the filling station. I know in the planning advisory report, it discusses relocating the kiosk underneath the canopy and possibly reducing the amount of pumps that are underneath the canopy. So at the time that planning staff was reviewing this application, they also looked at some other existing BJ sites that have filling stations on Long Island, and they found that there are several that have canopies containing 6 pumps underneath the canopy with a center kiosk in the middle. And that's why it was recommended in the planning advisory report that the canopy be reduced from 208 square feet to 180 square feet, and that the canopy be put underneath, the kiosk be put underneath the canopy. With respect to the propane filling station, again, in reviewing some of the existing BJ's sites on the island that do have propane filling stations, we did see a number of them that had 1,000-gallon tanks, not 2,000-gallon tanks. I was not aware of the one that was built on the South Shore that has capacity of 2,000 gallons, but we are aware of 1,000 gallons as the standard capacity at the sites that we reviewed. What else? What else? I think that was really about it in terms of what the main issues were.
It was brought up at the new BJ's, Medford or wherever, 2,000 gallons. Would that change your train of thought at all?
I can't speak for the department. That's a question that has to be posed to the planning director, and it requires discussion. Unfortunately, he is away, and he will not be back for about 2 weeks. But I think we'd be happy to have that discussion at that time when he comes back to see what the outcome would be, if it would change, the recommendation, or if the recommendation would remain as it is in the PAR.
Those 2 gas stations with the legal canopy signs, will those be taken down?
Well, I'm sure that there are violations that are, if they haven't already been, they are going to be issued, possibly appearance tickets to district court. Again, they're not legal signs under the code, and the town has not issued any permits or COs for them.
Okay.
That's it.
Sabrina?
Mr. Chairman, to ensure full compliance with our environmental review, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant and any comments from the public before we make a recommendation to the board.
Certainly.
Blaze, thank you for the explanation. But I know you mentioned the 2 signs, the Bola and the Ultra, I think it is?
I think that's the name of the gas station.
Okay. Do you know anything about the Phillips 76 sign that's right there in the shopping center that has the 4? Because that used to be a Getty station, and now it's a Phillips 76.
Which shopping center?
In the Kimco Center. It's the out parcel of the Kimco Center, like right in the center. It's in the book. That's the, I think it's Exhibit 9 or 10.
you see 7? 7?
It's located at 15 Veterans Highway. So the Comac Plaza is 2 Veterans Highway, so it's right there.
Yeah. I can honestly say it's not ringing any bells. I'm
Yes.
not familiar with the site, but I would hazard a guess to say that the signage that's on this canopy, because I see a lot of corporate colors,
Right.
and I see multiple signs on this canopy, I would highly doubt that this board has granted variances for
Okay.
those signs.
Just, yeah, if we can just check that, you know, and I'll be honest with you, regardless, I mean, I think everybody has a different situation. I think you can make a very compelling argument that there's no need for canopy signage at this Phillips 76. It's right on Vets Highway. It doesn't need a canopy sign. Quite frankly, the BOLA sign doesn't need to have a canopy sign. It's right on the road. Ultra Fuel, right on the road. This is an unusual situation where we're behind the shopping center and there's no other way to be identified. So I think there's a more compelling reason or a compelling case can be made for modest, you know, again, we're not looking to do this. We're looking to just have a small, you know, logo up there that says BJ's Gas and the fuel price, you know, and they're very small. Both of them, I think, like I said, 22 and 28 square feet. They're both very small signs. With respect to the ground signs, one thing, you know, I know you're mentioning that the 32 square feet is what the code requires, and that the board was generous in granting to 118. But I would mention that the signs were actually larger. These are pre-existing signs, right? When it said Macy's, the word Macy's was larger. So these signs actually got smaller than what was existing. So if you go back and look at the transcript, well, we were never asking to go from 32 to 118. We were actually, I don't remember the exact numbers of what it was at that time, but they were larger because of the Macy's, the word Macy's versus the 3 letters for BJ's. I understand why, you know, planning goes out, it does its research, it looks and sees what other uses, other BJ's are, how they operate. But I do have a problem with the concept of going out and just saying, well, I went to BJ's and they always have 6. Well, maybe they have 6 and they know 6 doesn't work. I have a problem that Costco just got approved 12, but a BJ's and say, well, you know, BJ's operated with 6. Well, why can't BJ's have 8 if Costco has 12? And I don't think the reason can just be, well, your other BJ's only have 6. You know, BJ's learned this lesson. It needs more than 6. And so that's why we're asking. But we're not asking for 12. We're asking for 8, and we think that it fits. So I just wanted to point that out. And then lastly, with respect to the storage tank for the propane, I know you're going to take a look at that. But I would just point out that, you know, the enclosure is the enclosure. If you can't see what's in the pen, whether it's 1 tank, 2 tanks, 5 tanks, 10 tanks, the concern of planning in the planning advisory report is that we don't want people to see what's there, right? We want you to screen it. So what's inside the pen, I don't think has any zoning significance because it is being screened by a fence, bollards, and landscaping. So if we're in the same box, what we put in the box, I don't think should be that concerning, but I understand that you're going to look at that, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard of this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. In favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Very much. Thank you.
This is the first portion of our meeting for tonight. All right, the first case tonight was case 19141, Frank and Indira Fromm.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
Bill? Second. Okay. Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 3-0. Next case is case 19142, Belquiz Hamani. That has been adjourned to August 6th. The next case is case 19143, Gennaro and Melissa Scapati. That also has been adjourned to August 6th. The next case was case 19145, Jacqueline and Steve Caputa.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second. Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 3-0. Next case is case 19146, Chang-Woo Lee. No action. Next case is case 19147, Thomas Drago. No action. Next case is case 19148, Stefanov Realty Properties LLC. No action. And the next case is case 19144, All Hands on Deck. Can we have some conversation on this?
Sure.
I believe the planning advisory report called for bollards in the back.
So, yeah,
I
just,
kind of
just,
agree.
well, originally, when we looked at it, we thought that landscaping would be appropriate. I think that the problem with the landscaping was that we were concerned that if cars were being backed in or pulled in, and they were pulled all the way up to the very edge of the curbing, and they were going into the landscaping, they'd be damaging the landscaping, and the applicant would only have to wind up replacing it if it got damaged or died, because they're required to maintain all landscaping on site. So we came up with the bollards as a way to prevent vehicles from going into the landscaped area to the north, and also not have to worry about damage to what's ever put there, because the bollards are usually made out of concrete or steel or a combination of both. Again, when we did the conditions, we did say that, you know, everything was subject to review, modification, and/or approval by the Board of Site Plan Review. If you do approve it with the bollards, and the Board of Site Plan Review feels that the landscaping is adequate, you know, they may have the ability to make that change during site plan review. But if you approve it with landscaping as opposed to the bollards, and the Board of Site Plan Review wants the bollards, then they'd have to come back to the board to either have that condition modified or to have it heard again, because the board didn't approve the bollards in its place.
But if we approve the bollards, in all likelihood, site plan review is going to approve the bollards.
50/50.
I think her presentation, I mean, she's going to put 6-foot-high trees in.
Yeah,
I think, you know, if you're backing up or you're pulling in, you're going to see a tree.
yeah,
You're going to stop.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's
I mean,
reasonable
just me,
assumption.
I'm for deleting the bollards.
Jorkel? You
Again.
can require that the applicant install at the head of all of the parking, a staggered row of 6-foot-tall abrevieties or similar or comparable plant and maintain in a double staggered row.
Yeah.
And that would provide an additional buffer to the residences to the north. They wouldn't be able to see what's in the parking spaces.
Okay.
So then are we going to approve it without the bollards, but with the double staggered row of green giant arborvitae?
I'm for that.
I'm okay with that, too. All right.
Here, if you want to read them, recommendations, you can just go down here
Okay.
and eliminate the bollards.
Hold on. So you want me to move with conditions 1 and 3, but not 2? one and, fine. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve application 19-144, subject to the following conditions. Special exception to permit for the repair garage
Be approved.
be approved. Variance of a special exception standard to eliminate the required 6-foot opaque fence enclosure for outdoor storage be approved. Variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Hillside Avenue from 50 feet to 31 feet be approved. Variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Middle Country Road from 50 feet to 45 feet be approved. Variance to reduce the minimum parking setback on Hillside Avenue from 25 feet to 13 feet be approved. Variance to reduce the minimum parking setback on Middle Country Road from 25 feet to 5 feet be approved. Variance to reduce the minimum required parking from 16 to 15 spaces be approved, with the condition that all outdoor storage shall be screened from public view along Hillside Avenue and north property boundary line, with the installation of a 6-foot opaque fence and type 2 plantings as required by the Board of Site Plan Review, and with the condition that proposed area for 55-gallon drum storage and dumpster shall be enclosed with fencing.
Okay, and you want it? Yeah, you can read it in.
So I rewrote condition 3 based on what all of you said. So condition 3 would be that the applicant shall install and maintain a double staggered row of 6-foot-tall abrevieties or comparable species along the head of the outdoor storage parking spaces.
Second. Okay. Motion has been made to approve with conditions. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 3-0. Next case is case 19140, Comac Shopping Center, LLC, BJ's. No action. On the back, case number 19126, Ella and you want me to spell?
Anastasius.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We were just waiting for,
Yes.
Our environmental review is based on information that was provided by the building department, that health department approval is not required for the additional site work, provided that the applicant relocates the previous bedroom garage conversion on the first floor. The current application proposes to relocate this 4th bedroom to the 2nd floor and maintain the garage. Otherwise, an increase in the number of bedrooms would require approval from the health department.
okay,
That would be your condition.
right, and we could just vote on it.
Okay.
You want me to move now?
Yeah, you can approve it,
You can make a movement.
you can approve it with the condition that was stated by the environmental people.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that application number 19-126 be approved, subject to the condition from the
Environmental?
Environmental Department.
Second on that? Second?
All right. Motion has been made to approve with conditions. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 3-0. Next case is case 19137, Lynn Anderson. We were just waiting.
Just for the secret, it's
Secret.
just for a shed in the front
Yeah.
yard. Yeah.
You just
We're
approved.
going to
it.
move,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move that application 19-137 be approved as presented.
Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 3-0. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.